Anyway, you know what else is happening?
No.
The Jim Londos book has been released. Steve Johnson we've talked about it here on the program, I think, before. I remember talking about more of it than you do, but Steve Johnson has authored the definitive biography of Jim Londos called Jim Londos, the Golden Greek of Professional Wrestling. It's on McFarland, McFarland, McFarland Books, and they are now taking orders. Apparently, it may have been delayed somewhat because I think a printing factory or something in the chain. Well, the McFarland Books is located in Western North Carolina, so they had weather issues that everybody's aware of. But finally, things are on track and they're taking orders. And you're a big Londos collector. And Fred, did they send you one of these, Brian? He sent me one. I've known Steve for years.
No, I have not received one. I have a pre-order in, so when it finally comes out, I've received several Amazon updates saying it was delayed, but I guess now it's finally coming out. I'll finally get to read it.
See, I got mine from the author, but he's an elderly man like I am, so he probably forgets about the whippersnappers like you that just come along the scene the last 20 or 30 years.
He probably doesn't know who I am. I'm just one of the biggest Londos collectors out there.
Well, did you tell the people about how you actually won the auction and got Jim Londos's jockstrap that he used in 1934 in the match with Lewis?
That's not true. I lost out to John Pantozzi on that auction, as everyone knows. But
hey, John Pantozzi may sniff jocks, but they're the goddamn finest, rarest jocks in the world.
That's not what I said either. But yeah, Jim Londos, this should be interesting because you always have him in the argument who's the biggest star in the history of wrestling. Now there'll finally be a definitive, I would assume, a definitive biography to kind of wrap up the argument.
Well, see, and I read the manuscript, but the book has pictures, so it's even better. But no, this is an amazing story. Londos is the biggest mainstream name in the history of professional wrestling in the United States. And yes, I am including Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin and The Rock and etc. because of his era. Until you read the book, well, we've known because, we look into these things. But when you read this book, you will understand that he was one of the most famous celebrities in not only the United States, but in Europe and Greece and around the world because of the newspaper coverage of wrestling at that time, when everybody everywhere read the newspaper and newsreels and things of, it was a big deal when Jim Londos came into town on the train. So he also transformed the wrestling business with really being the first big major drawing card champion that was the worker that would sell and get sympathy and bring emotion from the people. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, two things on Londos. One, I don't have it here because it wasn't something I was going to keep in here for guest the program because of the nature of it. But I recently purchased just someone, and I forget even the town actually, it's in the other room. They cut out everything that was in the newspaper about Londos coming to town, and then they got a press pass to go to the event. So it was everything about the coverage and about how radio was going to cover it in 1935, I want to say. And it had the press pass there. It was pretty cool. I'll grab that during our next break and tell you about it. But also, due to the interest in Jim Londos right now, I'm going to probably reissue that Tijuana Bible I have. Jim Londos, which is the filthiest fucking thing you've ever seen.
That was obviously not an authorized product of the Golden Greek.
Yeah, for anyone who thinks like pornography just started with like Larry Flint and Hugh Hefner. They were making the filthiest cartoons with all your favorite cartoon characters and apparently professional athletes just fucking and sucking and doing all sorts of shit. But stay tuned. Coming out from Not McFarland Press very soon.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, we've gone to Tijuana Bibles from this wonderful new book. Again, Jim Londos, The Golden Greek of Professional Wrestling, which is available at McFarlandBooks.com. But again, another one of these great looks like we've talked with Tim Hornbaker about and talked with Brian Solomon about the the early days of wrestling, the history of wrestling, the pioneers of wrestling, the people who established it and transformed it over the years. And this is a big piece that has, I mean, I'm surprised because of the level of his celebrity when he was literally, along with the world heavyweight boxing champion, the most famous professional athlete in the country in the 1930s. I'm surprised somebody hadn't done a book before, not even from the wrestling world, but from the general sports world because of, how fucking mainstream Londos was.
You know what, though? You always have to be careful of those, because if it's someone coming into it looking to do a biography of a figure without any understanding of wrestling, they're going to fuck up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
It's impossible to wrap your head around it unless it's, something you've been trying to wrap your head around for years and years and years.
But fortunately, Steve Johnson has a warped head because he's been wrapped around wrestling for I don't know how long now. But anyway, and we encourage everybody to read this thing because it's just swell.